Welcome back to the Call in Our Shop podcast. I'm Austin, joined by Logan. We are at episode 37. Last week, we didn't have a special guest, but this week we do. It is none other. He has a great Twitter channel. Make sure you go follow him. Over 70,000 followers on there. He's got a new YouTube channel at FlashPicks. Top link in the description. Make sure you go show him some love. He's probably the most handsome gambler we have on the platform, besides maybe Logan and I, but it's none other than Nick the Picker. Welcome aboard. We appreciate you for coming out to the podcast. How are you doing?
It's good. I appreciate you having me on. Best $20 I spent sending that for the intro. Thank you so much.
Hey, it was well worth it. If you pay me a little bit more, I could go on for a couple more minutes. But yeah, we're just going to kind of talk about a bunch of random things. We'll talk a lot about baseball since I know you're into baseball. But I know you have a quick little rant to go on for the NBA playoffs because I've seen your Twitter and I want you to let it all out. This is a free space.
Yeah, I mean, why? I mean, there's really no reason to talk about NBA, and I told you that to begin with because these games are absurd. I mean, last night was another example. I mean, it was a blowout since the first quarter. Didn't watch any of it. Didn't have to. I just watched the box score the entire time through. Nobody wants to watch that. It's disgusting. Like I did this a couple of days ago on May 11th. Now this was minus the last two games, which probably wouldn't, they would even out. There's still blowouts in a sense, but the Bucks played the Celtics. Bucks won by 3, and then 12 games after that, the average margin of victory was 19 points. So I'm not watching that. I'm not betting props on. I'm not. There's NBA. I mean, there's a NHL hockey, great playoffs going on right now, and then obviously MLB as well. I'm just not watching it.
Yeah, I don't really blame you at all. Now, as an NBA diehard, I've been trying to tune in, but it's rough, especially because I do my player prop videos every day, and I have to basically take unders every single time, and that's basically all people have seen because it's like every game has been a blowout. I'm hoping the NBA Finals a little bit better. Tonight's game between the Warriors and Mavs, I mean, that series is kind of all but over, so we don't really know how the Warriors Mavs. And watch you say that, and then we get like a double overtime thriller tonight in the Warriors Mavs game, which is like all right, but that wouldn't even equal out for all the bad games that we've seen so far. So we're going to stick to baseball, though. We have a lot of fun content, but I want you to tell the people a little bit about yourself. What kind of got you into, posting your picks? And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself because some people might not know you.
Yeah, so I started on Twitter about June 5th last year. I've been gambling for a while. Let's back it up a little bit. I've been gambling for, 10 plus years, whether, be with friends, Bovada, offshore accounts, whatever. Always been into sports, I played sports as a kid, in high school, a little bit in college, but yeah, I mean, I just have an addictive personality. So I love gambling and I kind of got into that, had a bunch of group chats with friends and they were like, just, start on Twitter so we can follow you a little easier. And I was like, okay, no worries. I did that. Then I went on just a massive run as soon as I started. So that was pretty easy as far as putting up big tickets. And I was pretty crazy back then. I would do like 4-leg parlays with like $500 on them. Just stupid stuff. Still learning, but I was flush with cash and, was feeling hot. So it worked out at the time. And then, you slowly draw that back, but thought about doing like a VIP situation. And then, obviously I got advice to continue to grow. So you see these guys that are, get 1,000 followers and then they immediately want to go VIP and they stop their growth. I have guys that I started with that, I was 1,000 or 2 followers behind them and they're still at 5,000 and I'm 70,000. It just stops your growth completely. That, and I didn't like the VIP scene once I kind of like understood Twitter and gambling space and everything. Cause I kept to myself originally. And now I just do it for picks and try to make content and entertain people and kind of go the Barstool route, like entertainment, except I'm like a good gambler. At least.
So. What made, I always see you tweeting about Barstool. What made you so enamored with Barstool Sports? Because yeah, those guys are, with the lack of the better word, they're not the greatest gamblers. They're borderline clowns over there.
Yeah, no, most definitely. They got me into gambling. That was the thing. Like they were back in the day. I watched a lot of their content. My roommate in the Army was from that area. So he kind of introduced me to Barstool. This is around 13, 14. And then I really got into gambling. And then I enjoyed how miserable they were at gambling. But I said, hey, let's not do that. Let's try to win money instead. But we can still have fun. You can have fun, but you can also just not be terrible at gambling, or at least try not to be terrible at gambling. So I try to take like the seriousness of gambling with personality from Barstool, or just some sort of personality, and put it together, because you do get a lot of bland accounts on Twitter that are just like numbers, and it works. There's nothing wrong with that, but nothing wrong with having a low personality at the same time. So
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why Barstool has such a big, following, is more for their personalities. It's definitely not for their gambling, unless people are fading the heck out of them. But I too find myself, watching their like weekly NFL videos where they're just giving out complete losses, like their mortal locks. Their record's always terrible, but it's at least kind of comedic the way they do all the editing and stuff. I think it's pretty fun what they got going on over there. So maybe they'll see this, and maybe they'll hire you. You never know.
Barstool has a really, really good model though. It's entertainment first, gambling second, and that's important. That's like that has to be the differentiating factor, because any Joe Schmo can sit up here and say, I'm picking the Rays money line tonight, and here's why. But it's the entertainment value. It's what gets the people coming back. So I mean, I honestly, they have a successful blueprint, and more channels should try to follow that. But people only come back so often. You got to get winners eventually, unless your motto is just fade me, which I do know a channel that's motto is fade me.
I know. Yeah, that's a pretty common one there. But I mean, I think of it purely as entertainment. I don't take much of their advice. I mean, you might find something that you like blatantly you missed, somebody's out, or the weather, or something they bring up. But yeah, I mean, it's just entertainment. Make you laugh.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's basically all they are. But or obviously, I mean, you've gained such a big following in such a long time. I feel like there's so many people that are joining the, not only Twitter and not only YouTube and all the different spaces for the same, sports betting. Are there any tips that you would think, because I mean, you've gained such a big following in such a short time? Is there any, one tip you'd be like, hey, do this and you'll grow a following? Because there's so many people in the space. It's kind of so crowded. You kind of have to stick yourself out. But is there any tips you'd give to people? Because I know there's people that have watched our videos that have created, their own channels, and they're going on to bigger things. But any tips you would give to people?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the thing I just said, as well as, I mean, a couple things, honestly. So like, have personality, I would say. I mean, that's one way. I mean, you can be one of two things, right? You can be just really good at it, and there's some people that are, but if you have personality, you make people laugh, you might be able to get them in that way. But if you're early on in your Twitter, unfortunately, farming for likes, when you post card, that does help with the Twitter algorithm. So like, 100 likes and I'll post my card. It's stupid, but it does work as far as that's concerned. That being said, helping everybody, answering every DM, I've been working like 20-hour day. I answer so many DMs. I've gotten to a point where I really can't answer DMs daily. But you don't have that excuse when you have 1,000 to 2,000 followers. Because it's something that can, they're going to tell their friends and so on and so forth. And even if you lose, they at least know that you went out of your way to help them, and you'll interact with them, and so on and so forth. So it's really about just creating engagement with your community and working that Twitter algorithm, honestly, as well. So
yeah, it's all about figuring out all the algorithms, whether it's Twitter, TikTok, all of them. You kind of, unfortunately, I started out doing those things like, hey, 150 likes, I'll give you an added player and stuff, but it does work. I know there's a lot of people that might give you a little bit of hate if you do that, but unfortunately, that's the part of the thing. And I know you have aspirations to, do this full time soon. And so I'm excited for you to maybe get to that point soon, but enough about all the gushy talk. Let's talk about some baseball though. And I'm curious, I don't know anything about who you root for, but is there a specific team you root for, or are you a player oriented guy?
Yeah, no, I never. So I'm in Virginia, so we have the Nationals, but that wasn't really it's kind of like a newer thing overall. Obviously, they won the World Series. That was exciting. But I'm more of a player guy, and I haven't picked up on a team on purpose at this point, just to try to eliminate bias on my end. And I do that for NBA as well, just because the Wizards, never been to a game, never going to a game. No, I'm good. I'm just going to, eliminate bias and be able to, just root for players. I like certain players at that point, but, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I know. I know in the NBA at least you're a big DeJounte Murray fan. I should have actually worn my DeJounte Murray shirt,
Yeah.
but I know you just would take his over and rebounds, assists basically every night.
I mean, as
And
long as it's at 16.5, I mean, it's a legitimate number that he hits at a high level. Like, it's crazy. So
I miss that man. It's been way too long without his props. But are there any specific? I know we're going to talk about, and we know we can hop right into it. We can talk about some of your favorite players. What is your favorite? Who do you like to root for, at least in player wise, in the MLB?
MLB.
Yeah.
So I'm a really big fan. I don't do a lot of like bases props overall. So I'm more like pitcher props, first fives, over unders, and game lines and stuff like that. So I mean, at this point, I've recently started to look for these giant inflated lines for big time pitchers. Didn't work out last time for Cole. I had Cole under 8.5. He had a great start, at least for me. He had like 40 pitches and 2 strikeouts, but then he like struck out like 6 in a row, and it just didn't work out. That being said, you can find some value there, especially if you wait later in the day, wait for public money, and then just go under. But I do like Shane. I can't pronounce it. Shane McClanahan.
McClanahan, yeah, he's pitching tonight for us. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of him. Liked him since last year. As far as strikeouts, Hunter Green, he's like I just look for the pure strikeout guys. Like, they're either going to throw 110 miles per hour or just give up a home run. It's one or the other. There's no in between. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, as far as players in particular, I think it's not really something that comes up in MLB just because of the props I'm betting, other than pitcher props. I'm really focused on the team overall. So yeah, it's less team. It's a team sport.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel like when, I haven't bet a ton of MLB player props, in my heyday, kind of the past like year and a half, I've kind of gotten more into it. I feel like base props you kind of have to just ride the hot hand or fade a guy that's just on a cold streak. Like we were just talking about a guy on the Braves, Travis Demerit, who has like 28 plate appearances, no hits. He's just been on an absolute cold streak. Like his under 0.5 bases is juiced now. Like it's like there's just like we're tired of handing out free money on this guy. But base props can kind of be tough, so I don't blame you on kind of avoiding it because you could just get intentionally walked or even just like my one tonight, which who knows how it goes. We'll post this obviously on Wednesday at 10 a.m. But Mike Trout was over 1.5 bases, and Trout's a guy that could go out there and walk 4 times. Like it's Trout is great eye that you never know what Trout's gonna do. So that's why I normally don't do a whole lot of bases. I feel like strikeout props. Do you feel like as the season goes on they get a lot sharper, or what are your thoughts on them?
Yes and no. So like you have more of a sample size to be able to like study the player matchups overall. But those lines you're not going to find those mistakes. Now FanDuel, this is between us. So, if you need to cut this out, just let me know. But FanDuel does post these lines really early and they're usually off. I mean, like if you get it like last night, well, a couple nights ago, I mean, they're off by at least like it'll be like plus money, like say 6.5 plus money, and then they'll see all the other books wake up like a couple hours later or the next day all together, and it'll be like 5.5 at minus 132. Like they were off by a whole bunch. So you can get that and work it to your advantage. So that's something to look out for. But as far as like overall, I think it doesn't help. I mean, you kind of get a fixed mindset. Some of these people in particular, they get a fixed mindset that, hey, he's gonna kill it, and the books have seen so much information now that, their lines are just way sharper and, you're going to get screwed over. He's not going to strike out, 9-10 people at every game, No,
absolutely not. No, I feel you on that. I feel like the lines, I don't know, lines sort of get sharper towards the end of the year, sort of don't. It's kind of hard to project, but they do get all the data, and that's definitely nice. Like it's hard to bet player props in the beginning of the year. I mean, the past month, it's kind of been like, all right, we're looking at these first 3 starts, but also looking at, last year's starts and kind of seeing exactly what they're doing. But I do remember I listened to an interview by FanDuel. Speaking of FanDuel, it was from their head odds maker, and he was talking about how they felt like MLB was the the sport they were one of the least sharp at. Like it was like they had a new model. So that could be it. Like they have a new model that they just implemented either this year or last year that they're kind of bringing into things. And it does make like my life difficult because we do our daily MLB videos at like 6 a.m. So we'll be recording it within the next 12 hours. And oftentimes, like you said, FanDuel posts their lines so early, and those are the ones I see. And then when I post a play next, let's say I take, I don't know, Garrett Cole under 8.5 strikeouts at like -110. And then the next day it's like it's 7.5 at -110 because every other book came out at that. So it's like, and then I get flooded with, and I'm sure your DMs get flooded as well when you post a line like that. The line switches so much, and you're like, how do you like it at 7.5? It's like you have 150 of them. It's like, can't I just like reply all?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll say this 100 times, and people can listen. Don't ask me, because if I pick an under and it's a complete number under, don't take it. Just don't take it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I normally I like to. I forget who said it. Normally I do like a 10% rule. For strikeouts, it would obviously, every single strikeout's going to be like a 10% change. But let's say like I took like a Jason Tatum under 28.5 points, and then the line goes down to 27.5. Like, still fine with that kind of thing because that's like less than a 10% change. But for strikeouts, their lines are sharp. I mean, the lines could go from 4.5 to 5.5. They land on 5. Like, I swear, 50% of the time. That's just how it works.
Player props in baseball were the bane of my existence post All-Star break, because I swear they got the K number to the hook every single time. At least in my experience, I a lot of the people were like, "Logan, do more player props." I'm like, "Well, you want some L's?" Like I was so bad at player props to where I had to cut them off, towards the end of the year. And like Austin and I've always talked about, I love pitcher K unders. It's my favorite thing to bet because there's so many factors in baseball that can benefit the under. It's like the over, like, I don't know. I don't think people really realize it's really hard to hit a strikeout over. Like, the pitcher's got to be really on to get 5-6 Ks. It's not that easy. So,
yeah, that's why I look for those strikeout guys for the over. Like, like those guys, if you have guys that are in the middle, that, decent strikeouts, I mean, it's just not, I'm passing on it. But if it's like in the middle, like I'm questioning it, but it's a true strikeout guy, I'll be like, okay, like he can still do it. But yeah, he's got that finishing third pitch that you need,
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many pitchers nowadays, and I mean, I've only been watching baseball for a few years, following it this closely, but there's a lot of pitchers that don't know how to miss bats. Like, they'll get you down to 2 strikes, aka JT Brubaker last night, Austin. That the latter play that unfortunately didn't hit. He had him to 2 strikes so many times, but the problem is he didn't have the finishing pitch to miss the bat. He could get him to ground out, to pop out, that's fine, but in a strikeout, you're picking a K prop, you need that last pitch, the put away pitch, as they always say.
Yep. I was actually, I know you mentioned that to me yesterday, and I was wondering about the under only because after you said it, and then I saw it like 10 other places, and I was like, okay, all right.
I know. I wanted to die. I wanted to die when I saw literally that's the curse, the kiss of death. When I give out a play, that's why I go now. Sometimes I take obscure plays. Like my play tonight, Draymond Green over 6.5 assists. Haven't seen it anywhere. I'm hoping. Hopefully, by the time people are watching this, hopefully he treated me nicely and didn't get like ejected. But yeah, it's like the kiss of death when I put out a prop and then I see everyone on it, and then the line doesn't change at all. Sometimes the line goes the other way, and I'm like, all right, yeah, no, this is a loss. Like I've already come to terms. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, you felt confident too after that first inning. You're like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna fucking nail this.
Yeah, I did. I was feeling all right. And then he had so many 2-strike counts that it just, and he didn't have the put away pitch. Sometimes he was throwing straight meatballs down the middle of the plate, like 0-2, and he's throwing just a straight fastball down the middle. I'm like, these guys are most likely going to swing at anything they see coming through the zone. Like, don't give them no comment on Brubaker.
Something like that.
I learned my lesson taking a Brubaker prop. I mean, I was asking for it.
You were.
Pirates life wasn't for you. I'm sorry.
It's not my fault. But let's talk about better baseball teams than the Pirates. The shots fired. I asked you to come into here with a dark horse for the MVP. Now it could be AL or NL. I don't need you to go into both of them. And we're not talking, no. If you come on here and tell me, Manny Machado at plus 200, shout out to him for having a great start to the year. Might have to boot you off of it. But what do you got for some value for the people? I'm not, a little bit of value for just a little sprinkle. No need for a full unit, but just a little sprinkle.
Little sprinkle. So ideal scenario, right? Mike Trout gets hurt, and then Ohtani has a bunch of crappy games, and then this looks like an amazing pick. But Taylor Ward's hitting 375 right now, and is plus 8,000. So I mean, I don't do a lot of futures, but I mean the dude's hitting. He just doesn't have that household name recognition. If he continues to hit 375 all year, I mean it's hard to ignore him. Obviously, you have like Aaron Judge and Machado, and all these players that have had their bigger names overall, but I'm just looking for that straight home run. And at if I can get a player that's hitting 375 at plus 8,000, we're pretty decent part of the year already. Not, we're not crazy far, but yeah, I'm about it. I know he's just coming off that injury. He's a little bit, but he should be back. I saw some reports in the next couple of days. So again, plus 8,000. I'm just going to keep saying plus 8,000. Just think about it that way.
Well, when you're picking futures, it has to be about value. I don't want a future bet at plus 200, plus 300. No, I want to just get rich, right? Taylor Ward is the get rich quick, kind of pick, because you're right. Mike Trout might not win the MVP because, I mean, there's a few scenarios that can go wrong. One, injury. I don't pray for that, but I mean, come on. And then he also draws a lot of walks. It's just by nature. A lot of teams are going to see Mike Trout and come up in the plate, and they're going to say, I'd rather face the guy behind him rather than him. So they'll put him on base. It makes his on-base percentage look good, but it doesn't make his hits and home runs look as good. So that could be a narrative. Ohtani, you mentioned. And I mean, the real cool thing about Ward is he's playing at an ultimate, hitter-friendly ballpark. He's faces a lot of, even within the division, a lot of pitchers that he can touch up for sure. So I really do love the pick. I'm not even going to lie to you there. For an AL pick, plus 8,000, that's insane.
Yeah, I kind of like it too. I mean, I'm not gonna talk trash on a plus 8,000 pick. That'd be rude. But I agree. There's no value in getting a plus 200 because by the time that cashes, hopefully you will have built your bankroll enough that it will have already been plus 200 value. Your bankroll building. So I see Taylor Ward as a guy similar to a guy like Tim Anderson. Not my pick, but a guy that bats leadoff, batting pretty well, and might not have the most RBIs on his name, but might have a ton of runs, especially with Mike Trout and Ohtani behind him. Now that might go against him with Trout and Ohtani getting a lot of RBIs, but I don't hate the play, but it's a shame he's not going to win it because my guy probably will, and I'm in the AL. I'm going Giancarlo Stanton at plus 5,000 odds. Now, similar to your pick, there's a clear front runner in front of him. It's clearly Aaron Judge. Obviously, yeah. Judge leading the league in home runs, 17 home runs. But we've seen over the past couple of years, obviously Judge he's obviously won an MVP award, I think back in 2017. So there could be a little bit of, we don't want to give it to him again. And maybe they want to give it to Stanton. But I just think about Stanton. Obviously, this guy, we've seen him in the past when he was with the Marlins. It's still some, stints with the Yankees where he can just get hot and he hits a home run every game. Kind of like juiced Kyle Schwarber last year in August or something, where it was just home run, home run, home run. It was just raking like 12 home runs over like 7 games or whatever the stupid amount that Schwarber was hitting. And while Stanton might not be able to do that, I just think, if you have one good, what if Stanton, continues what he's doing this year, hitting over 300, 12, 13 home runs, almost leading the league in RBIs. If he continues to do that, and then what if he turns it up, extra notch come August, September, and he just turns it up and he just has a crazy September? I'm just saying Stanton plus 5,000 odds. I might sprinkle on it. It's either Stanton or Ward. It's going to be a 2-man race.
It's interesting though that you pick Stanton because in years past or even last year I would have said, "Oh, you fool!" Right? Giancarlo Stanton's a strikeout waiting to happen. If it's not a home run, it's a strikeout. This year I've seen something different from Stanton specifically. I mean, he's putting the ball in play more. And like I was watching a Yankees game maybe a few days ago, and I saw him just hit a little single right between the gap, and I was like, This is the new Stanton, right? He doesn't have to swing for the fences. This guy's just putting it in play. If he can do more of that, I think you'll see him creep up there. I'm not saying he's going to pass Aaron Judge by any stretch, but he bats in an advantageous park. I mean, Yankee Stadium, to get a home run off the porch, I mean, it's a home run in 1 out of 30 ballparks. I mean, it's insane. And then so that's got to juice his numbers a little bit. But I honestly, I like the pick too. I mean, AL, that could be anybody's race, really.
Yeah, all it takes is a little Aaron Judge injury, and then Stanton's that number one guy that people are looking for. If the Yankees continue their hot pace, which I don't anticipate them to continue what their record is with 26-10 or something ridiculous like that. But
they lost 2 yesterday, so.
Yeah. They did lose the Orioles yesterday.
Real quick, I have something to say. As far as those future bets, I mean, there's really no point in betting a guy who's like plus 200, plus 300, plus 400 at this point in the year, anyways, because they could go down with the injury and be just done for the whole. Like it's way too early. They haven't submitted anything as far as their portfolio for the MVP. Like it's way too early to be betting someone that low as far as odds. I mean, if you're really sure you're a super fan, go for it. But like it just doesn't make sense whatsoever, especially at this point in the year. I mean, maybe after All-Star break you can start to look at that, but yeah, not at this point in the year.
Yeah, I mean, like people that were able to get Ohtani in early last year. Like I don't remember what Ohtani's price was like beginning of the year. Obviously, by May 24th of last year, his price had probably been cut well in half, by even probably more than that. But yeah, I don't see a lot of value in betting prop or future bets right now. Just don't see it. I mean, like you said, there's no value taking a plus 400. I mean, Ohtani was like plus 210, Judge like plus 350. Really not a lot of value. I like what we got. Logan, what value you got?
All right, so I'm going to be different, and I'm going to go to the National League on this one. And it's not as good as value as you two, but I watched the game last night, and I just fell in love. I think Paul Goldschmidt at plus 2,500 stands a really, really good chance. Number one, don't sleep on the Cardinals. They're a team that could and probably will make some noise. I'm hoping postseason time because they're a really fun team to watch. Also, Paul Goldschmidt, want to know his batting average for the month of May? Yeah, nearly 400. He's batting 392 during the month of May. That is insane. He's swinging an extremely hot bat. He's got a few narrative pieces now to go along with it. If you watched the game last night, we had Cardinals money line. I was praying. I needed it in the worst way. And Paul Goldschmidt, he was 0 for 4 prior to this. Needed that one hit with bases loaded. How about a grand slam? I mean, he's one of those players that I know he's not even the front runner on his team. Nolan Arenado does not bat well on the road at all. Paul Goldschmidt bats well at home and on the road. That's where he could potentially pass his teammate Arenado. So I think Paul Goldschmidt is one of those sneaky, maybe the baseball casual sees like Mookie Betts or, those types of names. They're like, who is Paul Goldschmidt? 2,500. I mean, come on, you can't sleep on what the man's been doing so far this year.
2,500 isn't bad, but what if I could tell you there's a guy hitting 0.45 better batting average, 0.045 better, and plus 5,500 better odds? What?
I mean,
what's his name?
Taylor Ward. Thank you. That's my face. Thank you.
In your face.
Hey, well, the cool thing is Ward and Goldschmidt can both win it because AL NL MVP. So there's a possibility a world exists where they both can win.
FanDuel let us parlay those, right? Would they?
Yeah. I don't know what's up with Virginia, but I can't do MVPs on.
Yeah,
FanDuel.
I'm not really sure. But Logan, I like the pick. Obviously, I think it might be a little bit biased after you were absolutely elated from last night's Cardinals victory. I don't know what you would have done if he came out and just struck out and they lost that game. You might have not showed up to the podcast, even our daily MLB video. So I think there's slight bias on this one.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, of course there was some bias to it because of what I watched last night. But I just want to remind everyone, the Cardinals are a good team. Like, don't sleep on them. They've got the pitching, they've got the bullpen, they have for sure the hitting. They did it last night. I don't think people understand. They did it without Carlson and O'Neill last night. They still beat a really good Blue Jays team with Barrios. I don't care who was on the mound. I mean, this is a Cardinals team. I'm just, if I'm buying stock in a team, I'm buying it in the Cardinals right now because I think their stock's going to increase as the year goes on. But I mean, I want one of their two best players if I'm looking MVP wise, and it's Arenado and it's Goldschmidt.
Yeah, and the good thing about the MLB MVP is that your team doesn't really have to be good. Like they kind of go strictly off numbers. Like we saw Ohtani obviously won last year. Even if his team was trash, I think he would have won it just because of his crazy numbers. But yeah, it's not like the NBA where your team's performance is very indicative of how you end up winning the award or not. So that's a good thing about baseball. Granted, it's 162 games, so they're normally looking for, that best player, not best team kind of award. I think the team kind of, if you're coming down to like splitting hairs, I think they might go like the better team, but I don't hate that. Speaking of teams, Nick, are there any teams you think are overrated?
Ooh.
Putting you on the spot.
I know.
I can give Logan.
I mean, like after this month, the Dodgers. I mean, they looked really bad. I mean, they look really bad. Like that's all I can say about it. I don't know the numbers behind it, or I mean, I just know that I kept seeing people bet. At first, it was Dodgers -1.5 because they did go on a run there, and then they just they got swept by the Phillies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think they did, or they won the last game. They lost like 5 straight. Then they went off and rattled off 8 straight, and then people started betting them, and they lost another one.
And
I
now
think the Dodgers. I don't think the Dodgers are overrated. I think it's just you don't bet on them. It's just a bad bet. Like you're laying so much juice on a team. Like they're constantly -200 or better favorites. I mean, they're always going to be. I don't even know what they were today. -250 versus the Nationals. It's just like you're taking either their money line or you're taking a juiced run line, like -1.5, -140. It's like just betting the run line is just not profitable. Like it's just even if they won like last year when they won over 100 games, if you took their money line every game, you lost money, and you shouldn't be losing money for a team that's winning 100 over 60-something% of their games.
Yeah, when I say overrated, I mean like betting wise.
Yeah,
just don't. As far as a bet, like and now they're becoming an under. I mean, I saw a couple games ago they were underdog. I'm like, oh gosh, okay.
Yeah, that was quite surprising.
But yeah, that would be my. I know there is something I want to talk about. The worst team in baseball is the Detroit Tigers. It's the Detroit Tigers. People think it's the Reds. It's not the Reds. The Reds have actually looked really good compared to their first 30 games. It's the Tigers' offense is awful, and I don't know why, but I have a lot of Tigers like Twitter stuff pop up, and I just see a bunch of it. Like their offense is terrible. And now they have a bunch of injuries in their pitching lineup, and just overall, I think they're going to be the worst team if this continues. So
I mean, they're sitting at 14-27 right now, and that is let's see, that is only the Reds have less wins. But you're right. I mean, the Reds were like 3-23, and since then they've won 9 of their last 15. They've been pretty solid, putting up runs. We can agree with you. The Tigers are trash because we're normally taking the no-run first inning bet against them because that team doesn't score. I mean, naturally they scored a run in the first inning a couple days ago, like I think 2 days ago. But that team is really bad. They're just really struggling. And you just kind of watch Miguel Cabrera just kind of go up there. He's like trying to get on base every time, and then no one's getting a hit around him. It's just shout out to Miggy for having a good year, but guys did not get any help from any of their offensive players. I can respect that. Logan, what do you think?
Well, all right. So the Tigers are the low hanging fruit as far as worst MLB team, because you mentioned they're throwing out some pitchers that I have to go look at their game log. I'm like, who is this guy? Like I don't even know. And then they got Bo Brisky. They're putting young guys out there that are just hosting batting practice sometimes. I love Bo Brisky, but I mean he's young, he's raw talent. So, but what the Tigers do have is a really good defense, and we got to respect that because the Tigers are only going to win if they keep it close, and they keep a lot of ball games somewhat close. They're not gonna blow you out by any stretch of imagination. They're not gonna score over 4 runs. It's got to be a low scoring game. The Tigers are going to be competitive. But the team that I think is the worst team in baseball is the Pirates, and that's just because the Pirates have a terrible defense. Every time I'm watching them, I see errors galore. I just see like Key Brian Hayes, everyone knows him. He's probably the Pirates' best player. Like he'll try to feel the ball and then he'll go right past his glove and he'll just laugh. Like I mean, it's like it's kind of comedy hour out there, and they've got, they don't even have they're one of those teams, the Pirates, that don't have an ace. Like is Brubaker? Brubaker is not a good pitcher, and he's. What are you pointing at?
Yeah, ask him.
No, please.
Yeah,
stop.
Yeah, the Pirates have no consistent offense. They have no consistent pitching. They don't even have a good defense. That's why I'm saying. And they play in a division where they face the Reds and Cubs a lot, and those are lower tier teams that they should be able to rack up wins against, and they don't. Pirates, and they don't spend any money. That's the problem. Like I hate when these bad baseball teams stay bad because they don't spend any money. I think their salary is like $30 million or something in that ballpark, and it's terrible to see it when you got teams like the Dodgers spending $250 million or just an exorbitant amount of money. How are you ever going to get better?
Yeah, I think about this is a Brubaker free zone for the rest of the podcast. Please don't bring that guy's name up. I don't need to hear his name again. I don't like. I mean, I'm fine picking on the Pirates. They're probably going to win tonight just because you've trashed them. But yeah, not a very good hitting team. They do not score a lot of runs, and that's one thing the Reds do. They both do score a lot more runs than them. And I'm looking at it. The Pirates do have the worst run differential this year, and it's by 27 runs.
Yeah.
So we're 20 runs to the Reds. So, I can get on board with the Pirates. I don't think they're too good of a team. I'm trying to look at, honestly, that I'm looking at the standings so far. I think the Nationals are pretty bad. If I had to pick a team, I think the Nationals that's as close to Nick as a baseball team will get. But they got Juan Soto. Now that they're talking about trading Juan Soto. Like, you trade your best player and then I just don't know what the heck the Nationals are doing. They had that great run winning the World Series a couple years back. And since then, they've just been an absolute fall from grace. And if they trade Juan Soto, I don't know what their fans are going to do. And so this team has obviously started out 14-29, not very good, not scoring a lot of runs, really. Minus 59 run differential. Just been a very, very bad team. They just got blown out 10-1 yesterday. Actually, they're hearing me talk because they've scored 3 runs in the first inning against the Dodgers. So they're probably going to win today just against Walker Buehler. Just as all right, Austin, that's what you get for trashing us. But I don't know. I just hearing those Juan Soto rumors is just like makes me think, why are you selling your best player potentially? Obviously, we're still 2 months away from the trade deadline though, so he could stay there for life for all I know.
They can't pay him. It was the same thing with. I know Trey Turner probably wanted out, but Max Scherzer, they can't pay any of these guys. They don't have the money, or at least they don't want to spend the money. I mean, if there's anybody they should spend money on, Trey Turner, obviously. I mean, I would have fought for him, but you got to pay Soto, or else it's just like you're never going to pay anybody. Like who else is going to come up in the near future or distant future that you would pay over a guy like that? There's nobody. Like that's the guy you pay. If you don't pay him, then you're not paying anybody.
Yeah, no, agreed. If you're gonna, I understand that there's a point, where it's like, all right, this player's average. Do we want to pay him that much? But it's like Juan Soto puts up ridiculous numbers. Without him, their offense would probably not score a whole lot of runs. And so, yeah, it's the teams like Logan was saying that just don't spend any money. Like the Athletics. I mean, shout out to Athletics. I mean, everyone kind of trashed them so far. They've been all right. They've got pretty decent pitching, which is really the only reason they're still kind of hanging on to a thread. But it's the teams that don't spend money, and then they're like, oh, why are we bad? It's like, gosh, what do you do? What do you do with those teams?
Yeah. The Nationals is an interesting one because, again, they're a team without an ace pitcher either. Like, close your eyes. Think about who's the best Nationals pitcher. Like, I don't know, Corbin?
Is it Joshua Gray? No.
Josiah Gray? Is that his name?
Josiah Gray.
He's pitching tonight.
Yeah, that's their best.
Yeah.
What's happening with Strasburg? What's Strasburg's status?
He's been injured. Yeah.
I know he's been out. I just didn't know his status. But
yeah, that would be my best. And even he's not that great. I just think about strikeouts. That's all I was thinking about.
Sorry, counts I'm in.
Yeah. I know that.
Well, we're going to wrap up this podcast. And you asked me this question. And I wanted to ask when I was on your guys' podcast, maybe last week. And I wanted to ask you to give people one tip to become a better sports bettor. You can go into one or two, whatever you want. But I liked your guys' question. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's bankroll management. I see too many people complain about, I lost too much money today. I lost all my money today. Like, you don't bet all, like, even if you have to start, I mean, yeah, there's fun. There's different type of gamblers. You can have fun and, so on and so forth. But if you actually want to take it seriously, there shouldn't be a point where your account is totally zero after you deposited your money and you bet all that money in one night. It's not, no. That bankroll management. There's so many articles you can look up online. You can learn what a unit is, half unit, learn about spreads. And for your parlay guys, 2 to 3 is ideal, 4 to 5 max. That's my rule.
But I want 16.
I mean, they better be, no. I was going to say heavy favorites, but those never work out either.
Yeah, I did Yankees Dodgers money line parlay at minus 140. I'm doing well. Those that's how you get FanDuel odds boosted. That's actually how they figure. They just see, Yankees Dodgers. We'll just throw them in there. How did you? Because I assume everyone kind of. Did you learn about bankroll management? I assume as you started to do more sports betting, because I doubt you were. I'm sure you were like a lot of people that jump into the space and just kind of balls to the wall, and then they kind of lose some money, and then they're like, all right, well, I probably should manage this. How did you kind of learn bankroll management?
Well, I heard about it from Barstool, going back to that, because they would talk about units, and I looked up that. But I never understood it until I seriously got into, because I used to do DFS. I know we kind of skipped over that. I did DFS for a little bit, and that's how I learned how to study player props, and that's a great way to learn, how to study players as a whole as DFS, but I hate it as, gambling. But yeah, that's how I learned about units and stuff like that early on with Barstool, just the terminology. And then later on, as I really started to get serious and had a couple, you learn by your mistakes. If you're not learning by your mistakes, then, you're missing out. Because those can be the most valuable days is when you lose everything, or, you lose all your games and you're like, okay, what did I do wrong? Let's look back. What can I do to improve? And that's when I really got serious, read articles, and I'm still working on bankroll management to this day. If you're not learning something every day or trying to improve your craft, then you're probably doing it wrong. Again, not saying that, you can't have fun and just be casual, but if you want to take it seriously, then take it seriously, and learn about it.
Yeah, I can kind of echo everything you said. And it's kind of something I brought up today on today's daily MLB video was, I saw a couple comments, but people quitting baseball, not betting it anymore. And well, I understand that if you want it, maybe it's not your profitable sport or whatever, but I feel like there's so many people, especially for baseball, that might lose. Let's say, a game just started at 6:30. They might lose, and then they'll try to double their next play later on in the night without any edge, just kind of throwing a dart at the board. And that's just how you lose money. I mean, you might hit, it's it might work one night and then loses 4 straight nights. Then you're losing a lot of money. So I echo that. I think bankroll management is the most important tool. It's often not talked about enough. I would say, a lot of people, and like myself, I'm still learning bankroll management. There's some nights that it kills me when I lose my first play and I just want to bet, more and try to win it back. But it's I've done that way too many times earlier on in my betting career to kind of learn better. And I feel like that's kind of, there's stages of sports betting. And I feel like learning that one is probably the first stage that you need to before you can really start turning around some profit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. Yeah, I mean, it's just super important to learn that. Don't chase your losses. Don't chase your wins either. Those are two other things that you kind of harped on a little bit. But it's easier to do that with MLB because you just say, hey, there's 12 games on tomorrow. Even if you're betting on the last game, it's not like football. We have to wait a whole week. It's literally, dude, just wait less than 24 hours and you'll have just as many games. Just wait.
Yeah, no, 100%. It is a little bit easier for MLB just with all the mass games. I said the number today was 2,430 baseball games on. And that's not even including playoffs. So you got games galore every single day. And then we'll get to the All-Star break for 3 days, and you'll have to figure out there'll be some degens betting on some table tennis or whatever the heck they want to bet on. But, it is what it is. Baseball's on every single day. But we're going to wrap up the podcast there. It's been episode 37. Thank you again, Nick. Do you have any final closing thoughts for the people?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fun. Follow me on Twitter. That's it.
Yeah, we'll put your Twitter link down below. Put his link to his podcast for better or worse. Make sure you go subscribe to him. Go show him some love. How often do you guys post a podcast, just so people might know?
We try to do 3 times a week. And this is something we're kind of messing with, and I'll talk to you off camera. It's, whether we need to film in the morning or at nighttime, because the morning is rough, number one. But we do have to wait on player props. It's a whole battle. But 3 times.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. But definitely go show them some love. They have a lot of cool tips. I was obviously on one of their podcasts most recently, so go check out that one. We appreciate Nick for coming on. We'll put all his links down below. Thank you again for coming on the weekly podcast. We'll be back again next week. Let us know who you want to be our special guest. This has been Nick, Austin, and Logan. And we will catch you guys again on next week. Peace out.